Throughout history, there have been stories of the adventures of many explorers who went around the world discovering new places in different continents and giving them names. Some of these explorers encountered the natives of the land. Others don't really meet anyone there. However, these adventures are the origin stories of the places we call home today. Welcome back to the Told You Another Story channel. In this video, we will be looking at the story of the British adventurer that founded a kingdom in Asia. Asia is the largest continent on the planet, and it is very likely that explorers would have to travel a long distance to find unexplored land. During the old days, certain people took up the mission and sailed around the world to find new unexplored land. This British adventurer is one of those people, and this is his story. The man in question is known as James Brooke, who was a British soldier and adventurer. James was born on April 29, 1803, in Bandel near Calcutta, Bengal, but had his baptism in Sikral, a suburb in Benares. His father, Thomas Brooke, was an English judge in the Court of Appeal at Bareilly, British India. James remained at home in India until age 12, when he was sent to England for a short-term education at Norwich School. That was until he ran away from the school. His great escape was followed by some attempt at home tutoring in Bath, England, before he ultimately returned to India in 1819 as an ensign in the Bengal Army of the British East India Company. He saw some action in Assam during the First Anglo-Burmese War until he was seriously wounded in 1825 and was sent back to England to recover. In 1830, he arrived back in Madras but wasn't early enough to rejoin his unit and resigned from his commission. He stayed back on the ship he had traveled out in, the Castle Huntley, and returned home through China. On his way through China in 1830, he saw the islands of the Asiatic archipelago, which was still relatively unknown to Europeans. James tried to trade in the Far East but ended up being unsuccessful at it. When he got back to England, he made an abortive trading journey to China in the Findlay before his father died in 1835, inspired by the adventure stories he had heard concerning the success of the East India Company, where his late father had been serving, and particularly by the efforts of Stamford Raffles to expand the company's influence in the Asiatic archipelago. He purchased a 142-ton schooner named Royalist using the 30,000 pounds he had inherited from his father. He recruited a crew for his sailing vessel, training in the Mediterranean Sea in late 1836 before starting their journey to the Far East on October 27, 1838. By July 1839, he reached Singapore and encountered some British sailors who had been shipwrecked and helped by Pengiran Raja Muda Hashim, the uncle of Sultan Omar Ali Saifuddin II of Brunei. James originally planned to sail to Marudu Bay in northwestern Borneo. However, the British Governor-General in Singapore asked him to send his gratitude to Raja Muda Hashim in southwestern Borneo. The following month, he sailed to the island's western coast, and on August 14, 1839, docked his schooner on the banks of the Sarawak River and met Hashim to deliver the message. The Raja told James that his presence in the area was to contain a rebellion against the Sultanate of Brunei, which was due to the tyrannical policies of Pengiran Indira Mahkota, a kinsman of the Sultan. Pengiran Mahkota had been dispatched earlier by the Sultan to monopolize the antimony in the area, which as a result directly affected the income of the local Malays there, amid the growing frustration from the indigenous land Dayak who had been forced to work in the mines for about 10 years. It has also been suspected that the rebellion against Brunei was supported by the government of the Dutch East Indies and the neighboring Sultanate of Sambas, who wanted to create economic rights over the antimony. Despite Hashim's efforts to contain the rebellion, it came to no avail, leading him to seek help from James. James responded to the request and raised a force of local natives with him as the leader until he managed to stop the rebellion temporarily. He was granted a large quantity of antimony from the local mines as well as authority in the Sarawak River area as a reward. After that, James became embroiled in Hashim's campaign to restore order in the area. He later returned to Singapore and spent another 6 months cruising along the coasts of the Celebes Islands before heading back to Sarawak on August 29, 1840. When he returned to Sarawak, the rebellion against the Brunei's rule was still underway. However, James managed to completely suppress the rebellion while he pardoned the rebels for joining his side and provided positions in some administrative authority, even though he limited their power. Despite his initial refusal to pardon the rebels and wanting to execute all of them, Hashim was ultimately convinced by James to forgive them as he played a major role in their suppression. In exchange for James's continuous support towards the Sultanate and rental payment of £500, he was awarded the Kuching area from the Sultanate of Brunei, which later became Sarawak 1st Division. However, as time went by, Hashim began to rethink his decision to give the territory to James, a doubt fanned by Pengiran Mahkota, who had been deprived of his power in the area in favor of James. This caused Hashim to delay the recognition of concession, which angered James continually. With his schooner fully armed, James went ashore to Hashim's audience chamber and called on him to negotiate. This gave Hashim little choice, and he granted Sarawak to James on September 24, 1841, naming him Rajah, while putting the blame mainly on Mahkota. James issued new laws for the area banning slavery, headhunting, and piracy, and by July 1842, his appointment was confirmed by Sultan Omar Ali Saifuddin II. Raja James Brooke was highly effective in suppressing the widespread piracy of the region. However, some Malay nobles in Brunei were unhappy with his measures against piracy and arranged for the murder of Muda Hashim and his followers. By October 1843, James returned the two brothers to Brunei, also taking Admiral Edward Belcher of the Royal Navy in HMS Samarang and the EIC Phlegethon. The vessels anchored at the Sultan's audience chamber as they requested Pengiran's Yusuf position as Bendahara to be replaced by Hashim, while asking the Sultan to pledge to suppress piracy in his dominions, as well surrendering the island of Labuan to the British. During his reign, James established and solidified his rule over Sarawak as he reformed the administration, organized laws, and fought piracy, which proved to be an ongoing issue throughout his rule. James's status as Raja and consul for the British at the time also remained controversial in the United Kingdom, as the British government did not recognize him to represent the British subjects. He returned temporarily to England in 1847, where he was given the freedom of the City of London, appointed British Consul General in Borneo, and created a Knight Commander of the Order of the Bath, KCB. He pacified the native peoples, including the Dayaks, and suppressed piracy and headhunting. He had many Dayaks in his forces and said that only Dayaks could kill Dayaks. He also became the center of controversy in 1851 when accusations were levied against him, claiming he used excessive force against the native people under the semblance of anti-piracy operations. This ultimately led to the appointment of a commission of inquiry in Singapore in 1854. However, after investigation, the commission dismissed the charges, but the accusations continued to haunt him. James wrote to Alfred Russel Wallace when he left England in April 1853 to assure Wallace that he would be very glad to see him at Sarawak. This was an invitation that helped Alfred decide on the Malay archipelago for his next expedition. An expedition that lasted for about 8 years and made him as one of the foremost Victorian intellectuals and naturalists of the time. When Alfred arrived in Singapore in September 1854, he found Raja James Brooke reluctantly preparing to give evidence to the special commission set up to investigate his controversial anti-piracy activities. James Brooke's actions in Sarawak were directed as the expansion of the British Empire and the benefits of its rules, as he helped the local people by fighting piracy and slavery and secured his own personal wealth to further these activities. His abilities and those of his successors provided Sarawak with outstanding leadership and wealth generation during challenging times, which resulted in both fame and notoriety in some circles. His appointment as Raja and his subsequent knighthood are evidence that his efforts were generally applauded in both Sarawak and British society. Thank you for watching this video. Hit us up in the comments section and give us a thumbs up if you liked the video. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos.